So I want to talk to you a little bit about, Jim talked about some of the tools in your toolbox as a landowner, and those tools for managing habitat and for ensuring that legacy of land stewardship for the next generation. We all are passionate about that, no doubt. And this photographic contest is a great way to do that. We are solidifying in print and in digital format now the views and the landscapes and the wildlife for future generations to look at that are the result of our stewardship of this land. And I want to talk to you about another way to ensure that legacy, and that's being done for you right now. Many of you in this room are probably members of the Texas Wildlife Association. Those of you who are not, I told Gail I would not make this a membership pitch, and I won't do that. But I think you will agree after seeing this that the Texas Wildlife Association is working hard for every landowner in the state of Texas. Obviously, we can work harder and more effectively with the support of more members and the boots on the ground that promote the things that we do and that work as volunteers for the organization. But I want to talk to you a little bit about how the Texas Wildlife Association is doing that, and then also the other part of this landowner liability, it also says, and wildlife leadership. I think each of us as land stewards has a responsibility to be a leader and to promote the understanding of natural resources to young people. We all know that our state is becoming more and more urban. And fewer people have that exposure to the outdoors, and TWA is doing that for us, and I think I'd like to talk about ways that we can all work together to do that as well. I'll get to the next slide eventually. So TWA is a 501c4 organization. Most nonprofit organizations are 501c3 organizations. We're a C4 because we lobby. So we lobby for the benefit of landowners, for wildlife. We're advocates for wildlife and for landowners and hunters, anglers, and other conservationists and outdoor educators across the state. Our members, we have about 5,200 members, mostly in the state of Texas, a few out. Most of those are landowners. We represent about 40 million acres in the state of Texas, our landowners. TWA is built on what we call the three-legged stool, basically. We were formed in 1985 as a private property rights organization. And so initially, we were all about private property rights, advocacy. We worked at the Capitol. And then we realized that, as I said, there's fewer and fewer people at the Capitol and throughout the state that understood what we were talking about. And so we realized that promoting our hunting heritage and this legacy of conservation through education and through programs that promote those things were going to be very important. And so those are basically our three areas. We have this little Venn diagram that shows how it all overlaps. Each of those parts, those legs of the stool, if you will, overlap with the other, but we have those three different main focuses of the organization. And the Texas Wildlife Association Foundation was formed to provide the funding to some of those organizations. That is a 501c3 that can, all tax-deductible donations that go into the Wildlife Association Foundation. I apologize for having to flip through my notes. I found out I was doing this about a week ago. So, it is your voice that's going to promote this legacy of conservation, of land stewardship. And TWA tries to use our members' voice to go to the Capitol and speak of those things to those that make the decisions. We say it all the time, and you've heard it before, I'm sure, but there are more state representatives within Harris County proper than there are in the entire state west of I-35. Now, you tell me that those people in Houston, Texas, understand what you as a landowner need from them, and understand what are important things to promote wildlife conservation. Some of them do. But it's our job as TWA, we feel, to get to those folks and help them understand what it is that we need as landowners and what the state of Texas needs. What these, landowners provide a great social service by promoting and preserving open space that we don't really get credit for a lot of times. And so TWA is passionate about making sure those things are recognized by those who are making decisions. Gail wanted me to talk about some of our advocacy efforts, so I'm going to spend a little bit of time on this. Over the last couple of legislative sessions, one of our major focuses has been eminent domain reform. As you know, the Trans-Texas Corridor was a major issue during the not this past legislative session, but the one before that. And we worked very hard to draft a bill, and we got that drafted, and we got the bill passed to provide protections for landowners for eminent domain. Texas is the only state in the nation that does not affirm that that does not protect private landowners by requiring a good faith offer and an adequate compensation for eminent domain. Our statute does not require that. And TWA is still working this battle. We passed the legislation in 2 sessions ago and was vetoed by Rick Perry, unfortunately, who's been a great friend of ours in many ways. But it was vetoed. It was going to hurt the Trans-Texas Corridor. And he believed it was a bad thing for the state, and we're still working on it. Many of you probably voted for Proposition 11 in November, which was a part of that protection. You're familiar with the Kelo decision in Connecticut. The Proposition 11 was a constitutional amendment that at least would prevent, throughout the state, it would prevent eminent domain on the basis of economic reasons. And so we're getting there, but we're still working real hard. I think we can probably get somewhere this next session, but again, we've got to hope that our governor will work for us this time. And he has in the past. We are working really hard. Again, this last session, as you know, a lot of bills were passed, but there were a whole lot of bills that were held up at the end of the session that just didn't go for various reasons. But one of the things that we were able to get real close, we had a lot of support on, was this Outdoor Education Texas Partnership for Children and Nature. And though we were not able to get the bill passed, it just didn't make it to a vote even. We have an executive order from Rick Perry that establishes executive order that establishes non-agency, multi-agency, non-legislative NGO and a stakeholder task force that will work to create a system where we will have a required natural resource education in our public schools. A required course, they're calling it Natural Resources 101, that will enter our public schools. You'll see in a moment what TWA is already doing in private schools on a voluntary basis, in public schools on a voluntary basis, to get natural resources in the classroom. We've worked very hard for that, and now we've got something that we will hopefully pass in the next legislative session where it will be solidified in code that Texas school children will go through, just like many of them go through agriculture classes, but they will be required to have a natural resources component to their curriculum. So really neat, exciting stuff that's going on. Every session we work on protecting the ag and ag and wildlife tax valuations. Many of you are probably under ag or wildlife tax valuations. It's saving you from a whole lot of, many of you, it's probably saving you from not being able to own your land anymore. So many of us are land rich and cash poor that those property taxes can really hurt you, and you know that. We fight for that every single session because, again, these urban folks don't understand the value of that open space that you're protecting and stewarding, and how important it is that you be able to keep that as a private property owner and continue to implement that stewardship and those management practices that are keeping our water clean, they're keeping our air clean, and we work to keep that as a priority in Texas during every session. We're working really hard right now. We're in a partnership with Texas Southwestern Cattle Raisers on reaffirming groundwater as a vested real property right. It is our right as Texans. But again, folks don't understand that. And there's several decisions that are being made right now, and a couple of court cases that we're providing input on that would solidify and set precedent that, you know, we have just as much right to our groundwater as the city of Austin and the city of San Antonio has to theirs. And we need to level that playing field a little bit because they just don't understand how important it is that we own that water. So those are just, wind energy is something that we're working on. We're working towards adequate regulation of those companies to be sure, you know, so much about wind energy, it is a clean energy method, energy production method in most cases, but we're moving forward really fast with wind energy, and we don't believe we're not getting the information we need to make sure there's not unintended consequences, especially to wildlife and to open space. And so we want to try to slow things down a little bit and promote adequate regulation of those wind companies to make sure landowners aren't hurt in the long run and that our wildlife populations aren't hurt in the long run. So that's that first leg of the stool. The second leg is the programs of TWA where hunting is the lead card. And again, there's education and conservation in all of the hunting heritage programs, but hunting is the lead card. Our hunting heritage programs, we work with programs that promote ethical and safe hunting, quality land management, and preserving those traditions that we're also passionate about, those of us that are passionate about hunting and consumptive uses of wildlife in Texas. The first of those programs, basically two major programs within the hunting heritage compartment of TWA, and the Texas Youth Hunting Program is our most recognized probably. We take about, well, I don't know, I can't tell you how many we take a year, but we've, in 2008, 2009, we took 142 groups hunting. That's about 906 hunters, youth hunters, that most of which had never hunted before. Took them out on private land. This is all in cooperation with private landowners. Each of those hunters has an adult mentor that goes with them, a parent in most cases also goes with them. So we're educating over 6,000, almost 7,000 people each year through this program. Taking them out, getting them in a deer blind, in a duck blind, behind some bird dogs, exposing them to the out of doors in a really exciting, fun way, and showing them how consumptive wildlife recreation can be a good thing and a good thing for the resource. And, you know, obviously we couldn't do it without the landowners that support the program and the 1,300 trained volunteers in the state of Texas that take these kids out and really give us a lot of time. And it's also a model that's been exported to a couple of other states. I know Florida is doing it now, and I'm not sure what the other state is, but we're exporting it elsewhere. It's becoming a recognized model. The other program within Hunting Heritage is the Texas Big Game Awards, showcases game management, particularly big game management, from the hunter's perspective as well as the landowner's perspective. It's a partnership with Texas Parks and Wildlife, and we host regional banquets all over the state and then a statewide banquet in San Antonio, recognizing the biggest big game that were harvested for that year. Really neat program, and again, recognizing those landowners as well as the hunters who harvested the game. It's recognized as the official hunting program in Texas, and promotes awareness of wildlife management and the role that hunting plays in that, the economics that are brought to local communities because of hunting, and it's a really great program in that manner. Around 1,500, 1,600 entries last year. And these are our categories. We recognize youth as well as first-time harvests and other hunters as well. There's also a very strong scholarship program through the Texas Big Game Awards for freshmen in college. Conservation Legacy is what I used to work for. It's what I'm most passionate about. It's our suite of educational programs. And again, we're working to combat natural resource illiteracy. How many kids do you know from Houston that wouldn't know what a quail was if they saw it right in front of them? Heck, kids from Cotulla don't know what a quail looks like. And we're learning that rural kids are just as likely to be very illiterate when it comes to wildlife and natural resource issues as urban kids. And so we're working all across the state to combat that at all levels. We work with 5th graders to 5th generation landowners. It's not just the kids. We also work with adult education programs, which is what I used to do. But we want to empower and educate Texans with those fundamental science-based ecological principles, facilitate that natural resource literacy, but we also work really hard to create what we call wildlife conservation ambassadors. We don't want to just bring kids or landowners or adults in and just teach them about wildlife, but we want to give them the skills and the desire and the feeling of responsibility to go out and tell others about that. And I think we've effectively done that in a lot of our partnered conservation programs, educational programs, through Conservation Legacy. This is kind of our suite of educational programs. As I said, 5th graders to 5th generation landowners. It takes a lot of investment by a lot of people in the form of sweat equity, in the form of monetary contributions, and obviously in the form of that brain power that designs these programs and puts them on the ground. We do, but I'll go through each of these real briefly, but the interesting thing, the powerful thing I see about this diagram here, and we've been recognized by folks like Richard Louv, who wrote the book Last Child in the Woods, speaking about that nature deficit disorder, where kids are so ingrained in video games and the inside and the TV that they don't know anything about the outside, the outdoors. And Richard really complimented TWA last year on this because of the way that we've taken basically our programs that impact lots of people, and then our younger age groups, all the way up to what we call our wildlife ambassador trainings, where we take adults and create those ambassadors like I was talking about. But each of these parts they all connect with each other. We take volunteers from those ambassador trainings and come back and teach kids about quail ecology at a lands field trip. And so that's what we're really after, is creating those ambassadors that will come back and work with all of these programs to promote that literacy about natural resources and wildlife. So starting out with our public programs at the special events, some of you are familiar with Texas Parks and Wildlife Expo, which I think they've discontinued now. But big expo type things, stock shows like in San Antonio and Houston, we go to those. We put out skulls and skins of wildlife, have kids come and touch them, and adults really, and get their hands on the things that we're so passionate about, and start to get them thinking about wildlife and what's outside of their classroom. We reach over 30,000 people with these types of programs every year. LANDS is our Learning Across New Dimensions in Science. It's our school programs. What we call LANDS Outreach is our distance learning. We have a studio set up in San Antonio where I think we can be in 5 classrooms at a time. At one time, we've got somebody sitting in San Antonio talking to a school in Uvalde, and one in Austin, and one in Dripping Springs, and one somewhere else. And with Skulls and Skins, we've got 4 different programs that we can do. Around Thanksgiving, we do the Let's Talk Turkey a lot. We have this big guy over here, full body mount turkey, and we talk about external adaptations. We talk about life history. We talk about their mating, and just all of the things that really get kids excited. They get to call a little bit, and so that's a really neat thing that we're able to impact so many kids at once through our distance learning. We also send out what we call discovery trunks in our wildlife by design curriculum, and where we can send this trunk of stuff to a teacher, and it's got everything she needs for 2 or 3 lessons on wildlife. So really neat things that we can do kind of hands-off on our part. Our LANDS intensive school curriculum is a semester-long, it can be a year-long curriculum that takes wildlife as the vehicle to teach their state required, is it tax or TEKS? I get them all confused. I don't work with this stuff. But we've aligned our curriculum to those requirements at the statewide level so that a teacher can take this curriculum. We provide a couple of field trips, and they use wildlife to teach their science curriculum that they have to teach. And we go through collection of data, all the things. Is for 7th grade, and it's much more intensive. We can only do about 5 or 6 schools a year, but it's a great program. One of our lands intensive curricula is on quail and grassland birds, and the other one is up on the Trinity River, and it's about water quality and those aquatic ecosystems. So really neat stuff that we can partner with teachers, and this would be the model if we get the Natural Resources 101 curriculum in code and what we're working on with the executive order. This will be the model that we can use for that. So really exciting stuff. And that the Trinity program is what I was telling you, the one about water quality. We take 2 schools at a time. They all collect their data, and then they have swap days and exchange data. And it's a really neat way to teach science, and the kids really get into it. Moving up, we were in 7th grade with the LANDS program. Moving up to high school kids, we have the Texas Brigades program, and whereas LANDS is a TWA program with support from many agencies. Jim's helped us with it. Texas Parks and Wildlife helps us. The Texas Brigades is a partnered, it's its own organization. TWA partners with Extension, with Texas Parks and Wildlife, with Natural Resources Conservation Service. They're week-long summer camps for kids 13 to 17. It's a 17-year program. We've reached 1,600 kids, over 1,600 kids in that 17 years. And again, we're not just teaching them about wildlife. We're teaching them the leadership skills and the communication skills to go and teach their communities about wildlife. And then we have them report back to us on what they've done. We're talking of almost 200,000 direct contacts based on those kids, what they have done when they outreach to their community after they get home. Really great program. It's one of those programs that you're just really proud to be involved in. And TWA uses it as one of our flagships that we say, hey, we're involved in this. This is a big deal. So something that if you have a kid that's 13 to 17, or if you're someone who likes kids 13 to 17, check out this program, texasbrigades.org on the web. We immerse them hands-on in wildlife conservation, and then to use that as a vehicle to teach leadership and team building and communication skills. Just a fabulous program. And then moving on, this is something else that I've been really involved in over the last few years, is the WILD program, Wildlife Intensive Leadership Development. And it's for brigade graduates that apply for the program. We select 20 every other year. So it's a very competitive program, and whereas the Texas Brigades leadership camps are producing folks that are literate about wildlife, and they may turn out to be soccer moms, and they may turn out to be PhDs in wildlife management. But what we want to do with the WILD program is take those kids that are the most interested and really want to make a difference and expose them to policy making, and especially policy making and policy affecting policy decisions from a natural resource perspective. So we put them in positions that you would not want to be in if you think back to when you were in high school, sitting down in front of 3 state representatives and telling them what you think about wind development. We put those kids in that kind of situation, and we push them beyond their limits to really understand what they believe and be able to communicate that. And learn how to influence policy decisions and to promote what we all are passionate about. And these kids are amazing. If you ever get a chance to hang out with some, you should. Okay, so moving along up that continuum, our next set of programs is our Emerging Issues Education and Land Management Workshops. We do land management workshops across the state of Texas. And we talk about everything from managing whitetail deer and bobwhite quail to how do you negotiate a contract with a wind company and protect your rights as a landowner. And so we try to give landowners the tools that they need and pull together the resource people that can be of service to those landowners and give them the tools that they need to really be successful land stewards. And then finally on that continuum is our conservation initiatives and wildlife ambassador trainings. Quail Masters is our flagship for wildlife ambassador trainings. We take, again, it's very much like that WILD program I told you about. We take up to 30 landowners every 2 years, and we travel the state of Texas. It's a year-long program. Travel the state of Texas and visit amazing quail properties and see the successes of other landowners, and they leave being experts in quail and quail management. Great program. We also have the Advanced Women of the Land program, where it's a program, weekend sessions for women who own, manage, or are somehow involved in land management. And then, of course, we have our advisory committees and task forces that we work on, and our conservation initiatives. We work with the Edwards Aquifer Authority on promoting land stewardship as a solution to water issues in the state of Texas, and particularly around San Antonio and the Edwards Aquifer. So great programs. So I could talk all day about what TWA does, but this is basically it. We're working for tomorrow's wildlife today. We're trying to get a jump. This thing's going to get away from us if we're not careful. TWA is recognized throughout the United States as the representative of private lands in the state, across the nation, because no one else is doing what we do. There's no other state. There's a few other states that have as much private land as Texas does, but no state has the representation like private landowners in the state of Texas do with an organization like TWA. We work in Austin every day, and there are other private lands organizations and folks working at the Capitol for your interests. South Texas Property Rights Association is one of those. Texas Farm Bureau we work very closely with. Texas and Southwestern Cattle Raisers. But I feel like TWA provides and sits in a very important niche in promoting the interests and protecting the interests of private landowners, especially those that are interested in wildlife.